My name is John Norman. I am the interior design project leader for the brand new Acura NSX. I've been a designer at Honda R&D in Torrance for the last 18 years. It's been a wonderful and exciting career. I started drawing cars when I was in the 6th grade. I had been drawing before then, but it started when I sat in homeroom. I sat next to this kid and he drew cars. And I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever seen. So I tried to draw cars like him. And in the process, I started to learn about cars and I fell in love. And I didn't even know car design was a job. I was just drawing cars. And I started drawing my own cars because I thought that was more interesting than drawing the old cars. And then eventually I found out through Automobile Magazine that there was actually such a thing as car design. You could go to a school and learn to be a car designer. That was what I think that was my sophomore year in high school, and I decided I got this magazine and they had all the pictures of the car models and the car sketches, and it was just phenomenal. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I decided then that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a car designer, and I was going to go to the school called the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. And like all my teachers thought I was crazy. My mom didn't know what to think about it at the time. But I had made up my mind that was what I wanted to do. And I remember at the time, even though that was my dream, being a little bit nervous. Like I remember lying in bed at night thinking, am I going to be good enough? Is this something that I can actually do? What happens if I go to school and I'm bad? Thankfully, none of that happened, and my worries didn't mean anything. So then I applied to CCS, I got in, and after 5 years of extremely hard work, I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts and had this wonderful portfolio in car design, and I got offered a job by Honda in California, and that's where my journey as a professional car designer started. Now, years later, I've been able to focus on the Acura product for probably about the last 12 years. I designed the last 2 Acura MDX interiors, which was awesome. I get to do more of an SUV, sports family sort of vehicle. But then they announced internally within the company maybe about 4 years ago that they were going to redo the Acura NSX. And it was to me, it was just a dream project, because I remember being a teenager in love with cars. I was living in Massachusetts at the time, but almost as far away from car culture as you could get. But my parents, they had an original Acura Legend 4-door, and they took me to the dealer. This was around 92, like 1992. And we went to the dealer, we went into the showroom, and they had an original Acura NSX there. It was bright red. It was raised up on this podium. It looked so cool. That was like the coolest thing in the road at that point in time. It was just amazing. And I remember just looking at the car, I was just transfixed. I stared at it for like half an hour until finally, like, a salesperson walked by, and I asked the salesperson, can I sit in this car? Can I please sit in this car? And he said no. So I was kiboshed, right? And so then years later, I kept that memory alive. That of course, when I worked at Honda, I got the chance to drive the car and kind of see how special it really was. And when this project came up, I really jumped at it. I volunteered. I wrote my boss. I basically begged him, I want to be the interior design project leader for this car. I really want to do it. I love sports cars. They're fantastic. I had a personal car. I had a Porsche 911 that was daily driving at that point in time. And I felt like I could really do a good job at it. And eventually they gave me the job. And it takes about, from start to finish, from the initial concept to the initial sketches to when the car is rolling out of the factory, it takes about 4 years, right? So they gave me the job, and that started the journey on making the new NSX. One of the best experiences I had as part of the NSX team was at the beginning of the project. They have what's called a ride and drive, which is where you gather up all the competitor vehicles and you ride in them and you drive in them, so you get to see what these cars are like. So in this car, obviously, it was a wonderful group of vehicles. We had a Ferrari 458, we had a Lamborghini Gallardo, a Nissan GTR, a Porsche 911, an Audi R8 V10, a Chevrolet Corvette, and we had the original NSX as reference, right? So we started out, we were staying in this hotel in Hollywood, And we got to drive around there and pretend like we're rock stars and we're cool and we're going to all these trendy places, having people stare at us. That was a great time. And then we drove from Hollywood to Malibu, and they have some of the best canyon driving roads there anywhere in the world. So we went driving through these canyon roads with this amazing group of vehicles. And they are all phenomenal. The Ferrari's great, the Porsche's great, the Lamborghini's terrifying. It's an amazing car, a lot of power. And finally it was my turn to drive the original NSX. And now I had heard so much about it growing up, and what the original engineers were trying to do and the designers, what kind of car they were trying to make. And they talked a lot about the packaging, in particular the visibility, and trying to create this seamless connection between man and machine. And it seemed a lot like hype, and you didn't know what to believe. But I drove the car, and I actually had that moment. I had this almost like this transcendent moment driving the original NSX, where I was going along this road, and all of a sudden it felt like the car just disappeared. It became almost like the invisible car, like you're flying over the road, and the only thing that was left was your thought and your intention and how you wanted to move along the road. And it was such a profound experience. I realized then what was so good about the original NSX, and that how important it was to keep that feeling, keep that character as much as possible from an interior design standpoint on the new vehicle. So when we designed this car, we really worked hard to minimize the height of the dashboard, the thickness of the pillars, to really prioritize your outward view of the road. Because it's a high performance vehicle, where you want to be able to see where you're going. It's so important to be able to drive the car in a confident manner at low speed, but also at the limit of its extremely high performance. So we wanted to ensure that functionality and try as much as you can from an interior standpoint to create that seamless connection between man and machine. So we have these beautiful shapes on the dashboard, but they also kind of recede away. Like when you drive, they don't really call that much attention to themselves. We spent years on the steering wheel to create just the right shape. As you can see here, it's very contoured, in particular right here, and creates this perfect place to put your hands, in particular, give your fingers somewhere to go, right, and grip. And the paddle shifters are right here. It's very easy to operate. And we have a speed sensitive steering, so your hand over hand is limited. You're basically driving like this. So we really prioritize these areas, flatten out the top, flatten out the bottom, to create this really unique grip. We have a beautiful meter here. This LCD multifunction that changes its graphics depending on what IDS setting you're in, which is controlled by this big knob right here. You can go into EV mode. We have a full EV mode where there's no engine sound. And then you can go into Sport Plus, or Track mode when you're really aggressive, you really want to drive fast. And that's all controlled by this centrally mounted knob here. And the rest of the interior is very attractive but simple. It's a sports car. So we made this high tunnel here, which actually houses part of the PC processors that help transfer the power, because we have 3 electric motors in this vehicle in addition to the twin turbo V6, and a lot of that is routed through here. And actually it gets so hot that they had to put cooling ducts in here to keep the electronics cool so they could operate well. But we use that to create this beautiful console that has these strong pads here, but also on the door. So a lot of times when you drive at high speed, you have a natural tendency to want to brace your leg against the console here and against the door. So we wanted to make sure that you could do that, operate that vehicle, and have it be very comfortable and very safe.